Imagine a time long ago, step back thousands of years to a period in Japan called the Jomon Period. This time was from 14,000 BCE to 300 BCE. It was a period when the world was a very different place. Japan was still connected to mainland Asia. This land bridge allowed early humans to migrate and settle in the Japanese archipelago. The Jomon period was a significant era in Japanese prehistory. It marked the beginning of human settlement and cultural development in the Japanese islands. The name Jomon means cord-marked. This refers to the unique patterns found on the pottery of that time. The Jomon period is divided into 6 sub-periods: incipient, initial, early, middle, late, and final. Each period shows the gradual development of Jomon culture. This includes changes in their pottery styles, tools, and lifestyles. The Jomon period provides fascinating insights into a time when humans lived in harmony with nature. Their innovations and way of life left an indelible mark on the history of Japan. The Jomon people were the earliest inhabitants of Japan. They were hunter-gatherers. This means they relied on what they could find in nature to survive. They lived in small communities scattered across the islands. Their homes were simple pit dwellings. These were dug into the ground and covered with thatched roofs. They provided shelter from the elements. Life was challenging, but the Jomon people were resourceful and resilient. The Jomon people were deeply connected to their environment. They observed the cycles of nature. They learned to use the resources around them effectively. Their knowledge of plants and animals was essential for their survival. The Jomon people lived in a world teeming with life. They shared their environment with a diverse range of plants and animals. This close relationship with nature profoundly influenced their culture and beliefs. Hunting was crucial for the Jomon people. They hunted animals like deer, wild boar, and rabbits for food and materials. They used bows and arrows, spears, and traps to catch their prey. Skilled hunters would often venture into the forests. They stalked their prey with stealth and precision. They brought back valuable meat to their communities. Gathering edible plants, nuts, and fruits was just as important as hunting. Women played a vital role in gathering. They possessed extensive knowledge of edible plants. They carefully selected and collected the most nourishing ones. The Jomon people were adept at foraging. They knew where to find the best seasonal resources. They ensured their communities had a varied and nutritious diet. Living on an archipelago, the Jomon people mastered the art of fishing. They used a variety of methods to catch fish from rivers, lakes, and the sea. Fish became a staple food source for them. They crafted ingenious fishing tools. They made hooks from bone and antler. They wove nets from plant fibers. They used spears to catch larger fish. They even built rudimentary boats to venture further into the water. Fishing was more than just a way to obtain food. It was also an essential part of their cultural practices. Certain fish held spiritual significance to them. They were often depicted in their art. The Jomon people's mastery of fishing demonstrates their adaptability and ingenuity. Their skills allowed them to thrive in the rich aquatic environments of the Japanese archipelago. Section 5. Jomon Pottery, a window into the past. The Jomon period is renowned for its distinctive pottery. This pottery provides us with valuable insights into their artistic skills and daily lives. It is characterized by its intricate designs and unique cord-marked patterns. The Jomon people created a wide variety of pottery for different purposes. They had pots for cooking, storing food, and even ceremonial use. The pottery was often decorated with elaborate patterns, showcasing their artistic talents. The most striking feature of Jomon pottery is the cord-marked decoration. This technique involved pressing cords or ropes into the wet clay before firing. This created a variety of patterns and textures. The Jomon pottery is more than just functional objects. They're works of art that reflect the creativity and craftsmanship of the Jomon people. They continue to captivate and inspire artists and art enthusiasts today. Section 6. Dogu figurines, mysterious forms of clay. Among the most intriguing artifacts from the Jomon period are the dogu figurines. These small humanoid figures were made from clay. They offer a glimpse into the spiritual beliefs of the Jomon people. Dogu figurines vary in shape and size. Some have large eyes, others have flat bodies, some are adorned with elaborate headdresses and jewelry. Their exact purpose is still debated by scholars. Some experts believe that Dogu figurines were used in rituals. They might have represented deities, spirits, or ancestors. They could have been used for healing or fertility ceremonies. The enigmatic expressions and unique features of Dogu figurines continue to fascinate. They are a testament to the rich spiritual world of the Jomon people. Section 7. The Spirit World and Jomon Beliefs. The Jomon people had a deep reverence for nature. They believed that spirits resided in the natural world. These spirits influenced their lives and the world around them. They performed rituals to appease these spirits. They sought their protection and guidance. They believed that maintaining a harmonious relationship with the spirits was essential for their well-being. Shamans played a crucial role in Jomon society. They acted as intermediaries between the human world and the spirit world. They performed ceremonies, conducted healing rituals, and interpreted dreams and omens. The Jomon people's spiritual beliefs reflect their close connection to nature. Their animistic worldview shaped their understanding of the cosmos and their place within it. Section 8. Jomon Art, Expressions of Nature and Life. Art played a significant role in Jomon culture. It provided a means of expression, storytelling, and connecting with the spiritual realm. Jomon art reflects their keen observation of nature and their beliefs. Apart from pottery and dogu figurines, the Jomon people also created other forms of art. They decorated tools and weapons with intricate carvings. They created ornaments from bone, shell, and stone. Jomon art often features motifs inspired by nature. Animals, plants, and celestial bodies are recurring themes. These motifs likely held symbolic meanings. They might have represented the Jomon people's connection to their environment and their beliefs. The artistic expressions of the Jomon people provide valuable insights into their cultural practices, beliefs, and understanding of the world around them. Their art continues to inspire and intrigue us today. Section 9. The enduring legacy of the Jomon. The Jomon period, though ancient, continues to resonate in modern Japan. It represents the foundation of Japanese culture. It is a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of the Japanese people. The Jomon people's mastery of pottery, their artistic expressions, and their deep connection to nature have left an indelible mark on Japanese identity. Their legacy can be seen in various aspects of Japanese art, cuisine, and spiritual practices. Today, archaeologists and historians continue to uncover the secrets of the Jomon period. Each new discovery enhances our understanding of these ancient people and their contributions to Japanese history. The Jomon period serves as a reminder of the enduring connection between humanity and nature. It is a testament to the adaptability and creativity of early humans.
Hello and welcome, everyone. Today, we're traveling back in time to ancient Japan, to a period known as the Yayoi Period. This era, lasting from roughly 300 BCE to 300 CE, marked a significant turning point in Japanese history. It was a time of great change and innovation, setting the stage for the development of Japanese civilization as we know it. The Yayoi period gets its name from an archaeological site in Tokyo where pottery from this period was first discovered. This period witnessed a transition from the hunter-gatherer lifestyle of the previous Jomon period to a more settled agricultural society. This shift was largely due to the introduction of new technologies and ideas, primarily from mainland Asia. These innovations had a profound impact on the lives of the Yayoi people. They led to increased food production, population growth, and the development of more complex social structures. The Yayoi period laid the foundation for the unique cultural identity of Japan. One of the most significant developments of the Yayoi period was the introduction of wet rice farming. This technique, likely originating from China via the Korean peninsula, involved cultivating rice in flooded paddy fields. Wet rice farming proved to be incredibly efficient, producing a much higher yield than the dry land farming methods previously used in Japan. This surplus of food had a dramatic effect on Yayoi society. It allowed for the development of settled villages and supported a growing population. People no longer needed to be constantly on the move in search of food. This stability fostered the growth of specialized skills and crafts. Another key development during the Yayoi period was the introduction of metallurgy, the art of working with metals. Bronze, an alloy of copper and tin, was the first metal to be widely used. Yayoi artisans crafted bronze into a variety of tools and weapons such as swords, daggers, and axes. Later in the Yayoi period, ironworking techniques also arrived from the mainland. Iron, being stronger and more durable than bronze, revolutionized agriculture and warfare. Iron tools, such as plows and sickles, made farming more efficient. Iron weapons gave their owners a significant advantage in conflicts. The advancements in agriculture and technology during the Yayoi period led to significant social changes. As villages grew larger and more prosperous, social hierarchies began to emerge. Powerful individuals, often those who controlled the most fertile land or possessed superior weaponry, rose to positions of leadership. Throughout the Yayoi period, Japan maintained close contact with mainland Asia, particularly with the Korean peninsula and China. These interactions facilitated the exchange of goods, technologies, and ideas. For instance, the Yayoi people adopted Chinese characters for writing and incorporated elements of Chinese and Korean culture into their own beliefs and practices. The influx of these external influences played a crucial role in shaping Japan's distinctive cultural identity.
Hey everyone, today we're diving into a super important time in Japanese history, the Kofun period. It lasted from around the 3rd century to the 6th century AD. This period gets its name from the Kofun, which are these giant keyhole-shaped burial mounds. During this time, a powerful elite emerged. Japan started to become more unified, and the foundation was laid for the imperial system that still exists today. It was a time of big change as Japan went from lots of small clans and tribes to a more centralized state. The Kofun period really set the stage for Japan's unique culture and politics, and it's essential for understanding how Japanese civilization began. The most noticeable things from this period are the Kofun tombs. These impressive burial mounds are all over Japan. They come in all sizes, from small one-room tombs to enormous mounds. Some of the biggest Kofun are over 400 meters long. They often have moats around them and are decorated with clay figures called haniwa. These Kofun weren't just burial sites, they were powerful symbols of authority and status. The bigger and fancier the Kofun, the wealthier and more powerful the personal clan buried inside. Building these huge tombs took tons of work and resources, which tells us that this was a well-organized society with different levels of power. When archaeologists dig into these Kofun, they find a bunch of cool artifacts like bronze mirrors, weapons, and beautiful jewelry. These objects give us clues about how the Kofun people lived and what they believed. The artifacts show us that they were skilled craftspeople. Many of the things found in the Kofun also show that Japan was trading with other countries. For example, they found Chinese bronze mirrors and Korean-style armor, which means Japan was open to ideas from other places. This exchange of ideas played a big role in shaping Japanese culture. During the Kofun period, the Yamato clan became really powerful and eventually took control of most of Japan. They said they were descended from the sun goddess Amaterasu, and this helped them become rulers. The Yamato clan set up their court in the Yamato region, which is now Nara Prefecture. They helped create a more unified Japanese identity and paved the way for the imperial system. So, the Kofun period is a really important time in Japan's political history. The Kofun period was a time of lots of sharing between Japan, China, and Korea. New ideas and technologies from the mainland changed Japanese society. One of the biggest changes was the introduction of writing. The Japanese learned Chinese characters called kanji, and this gave them a way to write down their language. This was a huge deal. It allowed them to record their history, write literature and religious texts. Borrowing writing shows how connected East Asia was back then. Another big change during the Kofun period was the arrival of Buddhism, a religion from India, which came to Japan through Korea in the 6th century. At first, the Yamato court wasn't so sure about Buddhism. Some thought it would clash with traditional beliefs, but over time, Buddhism became really popular. Its teachings about compassion, karma, and reincarnation appealed to the Japanese. Buddhist temples and monasteries popped up all over, becoming centers of learning and spirituality. The introduction of writing from China was a game-changer for Japan. Before this, they didn't have a way to write their language. Kanji allowed them to finally write things down. This was huge for Japanese culture and literature. They could now keep written records, write stories, and create poetry. It made communication easier and helped spread knowledge. The Japanese also adapted kanji to create their own writing systems, hiragana and katakana. These, along with kanji, are still used in Japan today. The Kofun period is a really important part of Japanese history. We see a more unified and advanced society developing. The massive Kofun tombs show how skilled and organized the Kofun people were. The rise of the Yamato clan and a central court laid the foundation for Japan's imperial system. Buddhism and writing, which came from other countries, had a huge impact on Japanese culture, religion, and how people thought. The Kofun period set the stage for everything that came after and is key to understanding Japan's unique culture. The Kofun period, with its mysterious tombs and cultural changes, shows us how dynamic and creative early Japan was. It was a time of great change where a more unified and complex society emerged. The impact of the Kofun period can still be felt in Japan today. It reminds us of the country's rich history and the lasting power of cultural exchange. The Asuka period, from 538 to 710 AD, was a crucial era in Japanese history. Named after the Asuka region in Nara Prefecture, this period saw the blossoming of Japanese culture and the centralization of political power. During this time, Japan underwent significant transformations influenced by the introduction of Buddhism from the continent. Before this period, Japan was divided into various clans, each with its own beliefs and customs. The Yamato clan, based in the Kinai region, gradually rose to prominence, claiming descent from Amaterasu, the sun goddess, and the ancestor of the Japanese imperial family. This lineage became central to the ideology of the Japanese monarchy. And Buddhism, which originated in India and reached Japan via China and Korea, was introduced in the 6th century. The arrival of Buddhism had a profound impact on Japanese society, influencing art, architecture, and thought. Buddhist scriptures and teachings were brought to Japan by monks and scholars, introducing new concepts such as karma, reincarnation, and enlightenment. Japanese artisans incorporated Buddhist themes into their works, creating magnificent sculptures and paintings. Temples like Horyuji were built, showcasing intricate wooden architecture and becoming centers of learning and religious practice. The introduction of Buddhism also led to the development of new writing systems to translate and disseminate Buddhist texts. The rulers of Yamato saw an opportunity to strengthen their power by embracing Buddhism. By accepting Buddhism, the Yamato rulers sought to enhance their prestige and assert their legitimacy. They patronized Buddhist temples and monasteries, using their influence to spread Buddhist teachings throughout their domain. In addition to Buddhism, the Yamato rulers also adopted Confucianism, a Chinese philosophy that emphasized social order, hierarchy, and respect for authority. Confucian teachings aligned with the Yamato clan's desire for a centralized state. They incorporated Confucianism into court rituals and administrative practices. Prince Shotoku, a prominent figure of this era, played a crucial role in promoting both Buddhism and Confucianism. In 645, a series of reforms known as the Taika Reforms were implemented, marking a turning point in Japanese history. Inspired by China's Tang dynasty, these reforms aimed to centralize government, establish a land ownership system, and create a more efficient bureaucracy. These reforms represented a fundamental departure from the clan-based rule that had previously dominated. The Taika Reforms divided the country into several provinces, each governed by officials appointed by the emperor. A new tax system was introduced, requiring farmers to pay taxes in rice and labor. The reforms also aimed to weaken the power of the nobility by nationalizing land and redistributing it to cultivators. These reforms had a significant impact on Japanese society, laying the foundation for a more centralized and unified state. Additionally, the continued influence of Chinese culture on art, literature, and politics had a lasting impact on Japanese culture. In the year 710, something big happened in Japan. The Empress Genmei decided to build a permanent capital city. This city, called Heijōkyō, is now known as Nara. This was a huge step for Japan. Before Nara, the capital moved every time a new emperor came into power. This made it hard to have a strong government. Nara offered a chance for things to settle down and grow. Nara was a good choice for a few reasons. First, it was in the Yamato basin, which had good farmland and easy ways to travel. This made it perfect for a government center and for trade. Second, powerful families who supported the emperor already lived there. This meant the new capital would be safe and stable. Nara started a brand new era for Japan. It was a time of peace, wealth, and lots of cool new art and ideas. Japan was inspired by China, which had a fancy capital city called Chang'an. Chang'an was a great example of city planning and culture, and Japan wanted to be like that. Nara was designed like a grid, just like Chang'an. It had wide streets, big gates, and impressive palaces. Building Nara was a huge job. Thousands of workers and the best artists helped to build it. The city was a rectangle, like the Chinese cities. In the middle was the imperial palace, where the emperor lived. Temples, government offices, and houses were all carefully placed throughout the city. China had a big impact on Nara. You can see this in how the city was built, its buildings, and even its culture. Nara was designed like Chang'an, the capital of the powerful Tang dynasty in China. Chang'an was famous for being grand, having people from all over and being a center of learning and the arts. The Japanese court started doing things the Chinese way. This included Buddhism, Confucianism, and even how they wrote. Chinese clothes, art, and books became very popular with important Japanese people. This influence wasn't just for the rich and powerful, it spread to everyone in Japan. Even though China was a big influence, Nara still felt Japanese. The Japanese took Chinese ideas and made them their own. This created a unique mix of Chinese and Japanese things. For example, Nara's buildings looked a bit like Chinese buildings, but they also had traditional Japanese parts. This created a special style that showed Japan's growing identity. Not everyone liked the Chinese influence. Some Japanese people worried that it was changing traditional Japanese values, but China's influence was important. It helped shape Japanese culture during the Nara period and even after. This sharing of culture made Japan's civilization richer and helped Japan create its own unique culture later on. The Nara period is often called a Golden Age in Japan. It was a time of big improvements in religion, culture, and government. Having a permanent capital in Nara made it possible. Buddhism, which came to Japan in the 6th century, became really popular in the Nara period. Important people followed Buddhism and lots of temples were built in and around Nara. These temples became places to learn, see art, and practice religion. They were important for teaching people about Buddhism. One amazing thing built in the Nara period was the Todai-ji Temple. Emperor Shomu ordered it to be built as a symbol of Buddhism's power and to unite Japan. Inside Todai-ji Temple is the Great Buddha Hall, which has a giant bronze statue of the Buddha Vairocana. Making the Great Buddha was a huge project. Thousands of artists worked on it, and it used tons of bronze, gold, and other expensive materials. The statue was finished in 752 and is a masterpiece of Japanese Buddhist art. It shows how skilled and devoted the Nara period craftspeople were. Even today, the Great Buddha at Todai-ji Temple is one of Japan's most famous landmarks. The Great Buddha at Todai-ji Temple is more than just a religious symbol. It shows how powerful and ambitious the Nara period was. Building such a big and detailed statue took a lot of resources and planning. This showed how strong the emperor's government was. The Great Buddha was also a symbol of national unity. Emperor Shomu wanted the statue to bring Japanese people together. He thought that by respecting the Buddha, everyone could be united by the same faith. This idea of unity was important because Japan was still becoming a strong country. Building the Great Buddha changed Japanese society. It helped the economy by creating jobs and using lots of materials. It also helped develop new art techniques and technologies. Skilled artists from all over Japan came together to work on the project. This helped them share ideas and improve Japanese art and architecture. The Great Buddha is still important today, not just from the Nara period. It represents Japanese Buddhism and shows the amazing art from Japan's past. The statue still amazes visitors from all over the world. It reminds us of the power of faith and how creative people can be.
Back in the year 794, something big happened in Japan. The Emperor Kanmu decided to move the capital city from Nara to a brand new place called Heian Kyo. We know it as Kyoto today. This wasn't just about picking a new spot on the map. It was a fresh start. The Buddhist monks had a lot of power in Nara, and the move was a way to change that. Kyoto was built on a grid, like a checkerboard, and it was meant to be beautiful and peaceful. It was the start of a new time called the Heian period. The Heian period lasted almost 400 years, from 794 to 1185. It's often called Japan's Golden Age. It wasn't a time of big wars or conquering new lands. Instead, it was pretty peaceful, and everyone felt safe. Japan was mostly united, and the emperor's court in Kyoto was doing great. This peaceful time let art, writing, and culture grow and change. It created amazing things that still inspire Japan today. The emperor's court was the center of all the Heian culture. The emperor and his nobles lived fancy lives. They were supposed to be good at poetry and calligraphy, just like they were good at court manners. Everyone wanted to be like them, so art and literature became super popular. The court paid artists to make beautiful paintings, they held writing contests, and they decided what was cool in art and culture. One of the most famous books from the Heian period is called The Tale of Genji. A lady-in-waiting named Murasaki Shikibu wrote it in the early 1000s. This long book tells us about the lives, loves, and secrets of the Heian court. The Tale of Genji is thought to be one of the very first novels ever written. It was written in regular Japanese, the kind of Japanese people spoke every day. Before, most important writing used classical Chinese. So this was a big change. Japanese writing started to develop its own style. Poetry was like the heart and soul of the Heian court. Nobles would send each other fancy poems, usually about nature or sad beauty. It was how they talked to each other and showed they were smart. Calligraphy or fancy writing was also really important. If you could write beautiful letters with a brush, it meant you were educated and refined. These weren't just hobbies, they were a big part of who you were if you were a noble in the Heian period. It showed you cared about beauty, feelings, and expressing yourself.
The late Heian period from 794 to 1185 AD in Japan was a time of great art and culture, but it was also a time of growing political unrest. The imperial court, located in the capital city of Heian Kyo, which is now called Kyoto, was the center of art, literature, and elegance. However, beneath this beauty, things were changing. The imperial system, once very powerful, started to weaken. This marked the beginning of a major change in Japanese society. The Fujiwara clan had been in control for a long time. They gained power by marrying into the imperial family and controlled the emperors like puppets. However, as the Fujiwara clan's influence decreased, a power vacuum emerged and a new force. The warriors would soon fill it. The decline of the imperial system wasn't sudden, it happened slowly over time. As the central government lost its power, local lords, many of whom were skilled warriors, saw a chance to become independent. These provincial leaders started to create their own armies and build up their territories, which further divided the country. This period of change marked the start of a new era in Japanese history. The rise of the warrior class, the weakening of the central government, and the conflicts that followed would reshape Japan's future. From this time of change, a new order would emerge, one led by the samurai and their code of honor. Section 2. Cracks in the foundation. The decline of the imperial system. At the heart of the Heian system was the emperor, believed to be a descendant of the sun goddess Amaterasu. In theory, he had absolute power. However, in reality, the emperors of the late Heian period were more interested in art and culture than politics. This allowed others to take control. The Fujiwara clan, experts at courtly intrigue, had taken advantage of this for a long time. They controlled the emperors, decided who could be emperor, and ruled in the emperor's name. However, their power was fading. The Fujiwara clan became too focused on internal conflicts and maintaining their extravagant lifestyles. As a result, they lost control over the provinces. The imperial system also had its own problems. One major issue was land ownership. The aristocracy, including the Fujiwara, had acquired large estates called shuen. These estates were exempt from taxes and operated independently from the central government. This system weakened the imperial court's finances and further decentralized power. Furthermore, the court's focus on beauty and rituals meant they neglected their military. While the courtiers were busy with poetry contests and elaborate ceremonies, the real power in the provinces was shifting to those who had armies. The time was right for a new kind of leader to emerge, the samurai. As the imperial court weakened, a new group of warriors from the provinces, known as bushi, rose to prominence. These warriors were skilled horsemen, swordsmen, and archers. Their loyalty lay not with the emperor, but with local lords who could give them land and protection. The rise of the bushi was a direct result of the weakening central authority. As the imperial court's influence declined, local lords needed strong warriors to protect their lands and interests. These lords rewarded the most skilled warriors with land and positions of authority, further establishing the samurai's role in society. Among the most powerful warrior clans were the Taira and the Minamoto. These two clans, both descended from branches of the imperial family, would eventually control politics in late Heian Japan. Their rivalry would lead to a devastating conflict known as the Genpei War, a turning point that marked the beginning of the samurai era. The samurai were more than just skilled fighters. They lived by a strict code of honor and loyalty known as Bushido. This code would shape the samurai's beliefs and actions for centuries to come. The rise of the samurai and their code of honor marked a major shift in Japanese society, from a culture of courtly refinement to one increasingly defined by martial values. By the middle of the 12th century, the rivalry between the Taira and Minamoto clans had reached a boiling point. Both clans wanted to control the imperial court and what little power it still held. The Taira, led by the clever and ruthless Taira no Kiyomori, had gained the upper hand early on. Kiyomori had skillfully placed himself in a position of power at court. He had made his grandson the emperor and effectively controlled the imperial government. The Minamoto, on the other hand, found themselves losing influence and becoming more and more sidelined. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the future of Japan. The Genpei War, a 5-year conflict that engulfed most of Japan, started with a seemingly small incident. In 1180, a Minamoto leader, Minamoto no Yorimasa, rebelled in support of a different person who claimed to be the rightful emperor. Although this rebellion was quickly put down, it sparked a firestorm that would consume the nation. Despite early losses, the Minamoto clan, now led by the brilliant strategist Minamoto no Yoritomo, began to win the war. Yoritomo, based in the Kanto region, rallied his supporters and launched a series of successful attacks against the Taira. One of the most important turning points of the war was the Battle of Kurikara in 1183. The Minamoto, outnumbered but fighting fiercely, defeated the Taira forces. This victory was a major setback for the Taira, both militarily and symbolically, as it shattered their image of being unbeatable. The final battle between the two clans took place in 1185 at the Battle of Dan-no-Ura, a naval battle in the Shimonoseki Strait. The Taira, with the young Emperor Antoku with them, faced complete defeat. The Minamoto, led by Yoritomo's younger brother, the legendary archer Minamoto no Yoshitsune, outmaneuvered and destroyed the Taira fleet. The Taira clan was almost entirely wiped out, and the child emperor drowned. The Genpei War ended in a decisive victory for the Minamoto clan. This victory was a turning point in Japanese history, marking the end of imperial rule and the beginning of the Shogunate, a new era ruled by military power. Section 5. The dawn of a new order, the Kamakura Shogunate. With the Taira clan defeated, Minamoto no Yoritomo was the most powerful man in Japan. However, he was smart enough to know that directly challenging the emperor was not a good idea. Instead, he wanted to create a new power structure that would allow him to rule from behind the scenes. In 1192, Yoritomo received the title of shogun from the emperor. This title, which meant barbarian subduing generalissimo, had been given to military leaders in times of crisis before. However, Yoritomo's shogunate was different. It was not a temporary position, but the start of a new system of government, the Kamakura Shogunate. Yoritomo established his capital in the coastal city of Kamakura, far from the intrigue and luxury of the imperial court in Kyoto. From this strategic location, he and his successors would rule Japan for the next 150 years. The Kamakura Shogunate marked the beginning of the feudal era in Japan, a time when the country was divided into feudal territories ruled by powerful lords called daimyo. These daimyo in turn swore oaths of loyalty to the shogun. The establishment of the Kamakura Shogunate was a major turning point in Japanese history. It marked the shift from a centralized state ruled by the aristocracy to a decentralized feudal system ruled by the warrior class. This new order, with its focus on military strength and loyalty, would shape Japan's future for centuries to come. Section 6. Bushido, the Way of the Warrior. The rise of the samurai happened alongside the development of a specific warrior code of conduct known as Bushido, which literally means the way of the warrior. While the roots of Bushido can be traced back to earlier times, it was during the Kamakura Shogunate that this code was formalized and became a central part of samurai culture. Bushido emphasized several virtues, including loyalty, honor, courage, martial skill, self-discipline, and a willingness to die for one's lord. Loyalty was the most important thing in the samurai code. A samurai's primary duty was to his lord, and he was expected to obey his commands without question, even if it meant dying. Honor was another cornerstone of Bushido. A samurai's reputation was everything, and he was expected to live up to the highest moral standards. Any perceived damage to his honor, such as cowardice or betrayal, could only be erased through ritual suicide, known as seppuku. Courage, both physical and moral, was also highly valued. The samurai were expected to face danger and death without fear, both on the battlefield and in their everyday lives. They were trained from a young age in the martial arts, becoming masters of swordsmanship, archery, and horsemanship. Bushido, with its emphasis on loyalty, honor, and martial skill, shaped the worldview and actions of the samurai for generations. Section 7. A delicate balance, shogunate and emperor. While the Kamakura Shogunate marked the start of samurai rule in Japan, it did not completely eliminate the emperor's position. The emperor, although stripped of real political power, remained a figure of religious and symbolic importance. He continued to be revered as a divine descendant of the sun goddess and played a crucial role in legitimizing the shogun's authority. The relationship between the shogunate and the emperor was one of careful balance. The shogun, as the true ruler of Japan, held the real power. He controlled the military, appointed officials, and oversaw the justice system. However, he was careful to maintain an outward show of respect for the imperial institution. The shogunate needed the emperor's symbolic authority to justify its rule. The emperor, in turn, relied on the shogun's military power for protection. This delicate balance of power between the sword and the throne would characterize Japanese politics for centuries to come. Although the emperor was a figurehead, his symbolic importance should not be underestimated. The imperial court in Kyoto, though politically sidelined, continued to be a center of culture and learning. The emperor's presence provided a sense of continuity with Japan's past and helped to maintain social order. Section 8. The enduring legacy of the samurai. The rise of the samurai and the establishment of the Kamakura Shogunate marked a major change in Japanese society. The feudal system, with its focus on military strength and loyalty, would shape the country's future for centuries. The samurai, with their strict code of Bushido, became the most powerful class in Japanese society. Their influence went far beyond the battlefield, shaping the country's culture, art, and literature. The values of honor, loyalty, and self-sacrifice, so important to the samurai way of life, spread throughout Japanese society, leaving a lasting impact on the national character. The samurai's legacy is complex and multifaceted. They were both warriors and artists, capable of great violence and refined taste. They left behind a rich cultural heritage, from their beautiful swords and armor to their profound influence on Japanese art, literature, and philosophy. Even today, long after the age of the samurai has ended, their story continues to fascinate and inspire people around the world. Their code of honor, their martial skill, and their unwavering dedication to duty still resonate with people today. Section 9, Conclusion, the Transformation of Japan. The late Heian period saw a major change in Japanese society. The weakening of the imperial system, the rise of warrior clans, and the Genpei War led to the establishment of the Kamakura Shogunate, the start of the feudal era in Japan. The samurai, with their strict code of Bushido, became the dominant force in this new order. Their values of loyalty, honor, and martial prowess shaped the country's future for centuries. The relationship between the shogunate and the emperor, a delicate balance of power between the military and the throne, would define Japanese politics for generations. The legacy of the samurai continues to fascinate and inspire to this day. Their story reminds us of a time when honor and duty were paramount, and when warriors were willing to die for their beliefs. Their influence on Japanese culture, art, and philosophy is undeniable, and their story continues to resonate with people around the world. Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're stepping back in time to explore the Muromachi period in Japan, a time that stretched from 1336 to 1573. It was a time of big changes and even bigger events, kind of like a roller coaster ride for Japanese culture and politics. The Muromachi period gets its name from an area in Kyoto, the Muromachi district. That's where the Ashikaga clan, who were like the big bosses back then, set up their headquarters. See, it all started when Ashikaga Takauji, a strong leader, decided he'd had enough of the Kamakura shogunate, the guys in charge before. He took control and basically gave the power back to the emperor. But here's the twist. Takauji then decided to become the shogun himself, which meant he was still the one calling the shots. And that's how the Ashikaga shogunate came to be. Now, the Ashikaga, they were really into art and culture. They used their power to support artists and make art a big deal, which led to a super creative time in Japan. The Ashikaga shoguns, especially a leader named Ashikaga Yoshimitsu, were huge fans of the arts. They understood that art and culture could make them look good and help them stay in charge. So they gave a lot of support to all kinds of artists. Yoshimitsu was really into Zen Buddhism, a way of life that values simplicity, nature, and not having too much stuff. Because of this, he supported Zen temples, beautiful gardens, and art forms like ink painting and calligraphy, which all fit with the whole Zen vibe. But the shoguns didn't just throw money at artists and call it a day. They were really involved. They would ask for special pieces of art to be made, host performances, and even chat with artists and thinkers. This close connection between the people in charge and the artists made the Muromachi period super creative and exciting. Now, let's talk about No theatre. Imagine a play where people move really slowly and gracefully, wearing amazing masks and speaking in poetry. That's No. It became super popular during the Muromachi period. No plays told stories about myths, history, and even spooky stuff. The Ashikaga shoguns loved it. They paid for plays, supported theatre groups, and even acted in some performances. Thanks to them, No became a really respected art form. Two really important people in No history were Kanami and his son, Zeami. They made No even better with the help of Yoshimitsu. They came up with this idea called Yugen, which is all about finding deep beauty in simple and elegant things. Yugen became super important in No. And guess what? No wasn't just for the rich and powerful. People performed it at temples, shrines, and even in small towns, though maybe not as fancy. Everyone loved it. Okay, picture this. It's the Muromachi period, and there's a lot of political drama happening. But in the middle of all that, people are finding peace and quiet in tea ceremonies and ink painting. Both of these things were inspired by Zen Buddhism. Tea ceremonies, thanks to a Zen master named Murata Juko, became like a beautiful dance with strict rules. Every movement meant something, and the goal was to be present and appreciate the moment. The simple but elegant teacups, the graceful movements, and the peaceful atmosphere of the tea room all worked together to create a calm and thoughtful experience. Ink painting, called suibakuga in Japanese, also had its moment to shine. Artists like Sesshu Toyo, inspired by Chinese landscape paintings, used just a few brush strokes to capture the beauty of nature. They wanted to show the emptiness and the energy of the natural world. Now, even though the Muromachi period was a time of amazing art and culture, things weren't always peaceful. Remember the Ashikaga Shogunate, the family in charge? Well, they started having problems within their own family. The shoguns started losing power, and local leaders called daimyo became stronger. These daimyo were like mini-shoguns, and they often fought with each other, which made things messy for everyone. Then came the Onin War in 1467. It was a huge war that lasted for 10 years. It started because of a fight over who would be the next shogun, and it caused chaos all over Japan, especially in Kyoto. The Onin War was a big turning point. It led to a period called the Sengoku Period, which means the Age of Warring States. For about 100 years, from the late 1400s to the late 1500s, Japan was basically in a constant state of war as the daimyo fought to become the most powerful. The Ashikaga shogunate, which used to be so strong, was now weak. They were basically in charge of Kyoto and not much else. Japan was divided into many small territories, each ruled by a daimyo who had his own army and made his own rules. The Sengoku period was a wild time of alliances, betrayals, and epic battles. It was during this time that famous warriors like Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu rose to power. They would change Japan forever. In the middle of all this fighting, something new arrived in Japan: the Portuguese. In 1543, a Portuguese ship got lost and ended up on an island called Tanegashima. This was a really big deal because it was the first time Japan had direct contact with Europe. The Portuguese brought new things to Japan, like guns. The daimyo loved these new weapons and quickly started using them in their wars. This changed the way wars were fought in Japan. Japan and Portugal also started trading. Japan had silver and copper, which the Portuguese wanted, and the Portuguese had things like cloth, glass, and of course more guns. Nagasaki, a city in western Japan, became a busy trading center. But perhaps the most important thing the Portuguese brought was Christianity. A missionary named Francis Xavier arrived in Japan in 1549 and began teaching people about Christianity. Many Japanese people, especially farmers and those who were tired of war, found hope in Christianity's message of peace and equality. Imagine Japan in the late 1500s. It's a messy place with lots of fighting between powerful warlords. These warlords, called daimyo, were like mini-kings, always battling for more land and power. Then in 1600, a huge battle happened at Sekigahara. Tokugawa Ieyasu won and became top dog. 3 years later, he started the Tokugawa Shogunate. This began a time of peace called the Edo Period. Ieyasu moved the capital to Edo, which is Tokyo today. He created strict rules about who was in charge of what. This helped him stay in power and keep the peace. The Tokugawa Shogunate ruled Japan for over 250 years. It was a time of peace and good times. Unlike anything Japan had seen before, without war, people could focus on their jobs and lives. Businesses boomed and art and culture exploded. This Edo period was a special mix of old ways and new ideas. It set the stage for Japan to become the modern country we know today. The Tokugawa shogunate didn't trust outsiders. They were worried about other countries having too much influence, so they created a policy called sakoku, which means closed country. Japan basically shut its doors to the rest of the world. Only a few traders from China and the Netherlands were allowed in. Japanese people couldn't travel overseas. And Christianity, which the shogunate saw as dangerous, was completely banned. Sakoku had a big impact. It helped create a strong sense of what it meant to be Japanese. Without outside influences, Japan's own traditions grew stronger. But Sakoku also meant Japan missed out on new inventions and ideas from other places. This made Japan less advanced than some Western countries by the 1800s. Even though Japan was isolated, the Edo period was a fantastic time for art and culture. With peace all around, people had more free time and could support the arts. New kinds of entertainment, like kabuki theater, became super popular. Kabuki had amazing costumes, dramatic makeup, and a really cool acting style. Woodblock prints called ukiyo-e were everywhere. These prints showed everyday life, beautiful women, and famous landscapes. Artists like Hokusai and Hiroshige made pictures that are still famous today. Literature also blossomed. Matsuo Basho, a famous poet, made haiku poems popular. Haiku are short, three-line poems, usually about nature or beautiful moments. Edo, the shogun's city, changed a lot. It grew super fast and became one of the biggest cities in the world by the 1700s. People from all over Japan moved to Edo looking for work. Shopkeepers, artists, samurai, and government workers made the city lively and exciting. Edo's streets were always busy. Street sellers called out to shoppers, and tea houses and restaurants offered a place to rest. The Sumida River ran through the city, carrying boats and inspiring artists and poets. Edo had problems too. Fires were dangerous because most buildings were made of wood. The city was crowded, and keeping it clean was a challenge. But Edo still thrived, showing off Japan's wealth and exciting culture. Samurai were like the knights of Japan, but during the Edo period their jobs changed. Because of the peace, they weren't needed for fighting anymore. Instead, they became managers, tax collectors, and police. This wasn't easy for all samurai. Some missed the excitement of battle, some started studying or making art, others went into business, even though that wasn't considered very respectable for a samurai. The samurai code of Bushido, which was all about loyalty, honor, and being brave, was still important. But Bushido also started to focus more on learning, self-improvement, and serving your master and community. Even with strict social rules, the Edo period saw big changes in the economy and society. Cities like Edo grew, and a new group of rich merchants became powerful. Even though merchants were lower than samurai in social status, they had a lot of money from business. These rich merchants started supporting the arts and education. They wanted to be more important socially, and some even paid to become part of samurai families. Farming also got better. New ways of farming and watering crops meant more food. This helped the growing population and boosted the economy. The Edo period set the stage for Japan to become a modern country. The powerful Tokugawa shogunate started to have problems in the 1800s. Things weren't going well inside Japan and people were unhappy. Then in 1853, Commodore Matthew Perry from the United States sailed into Japan and forced the country to open up, ending sakoku. The shogunate couldn't stand up to the foreign pressure and it lost power. Samurai, who were angry at the shogunate for letting foreigners in, fought to put the emperor back in charge. The Boshin War from 1868 to 1869 ended the Tokugawa shogunate and started the Meiji Restoration. The Edo period is over, but it still affects Japan today. Many important Japanese traditions like kabuki theater and the tea ceremony started in the Edo period. Ideas like harmony, respecting those in charge and working hard, which are often seen as Japanese values, came from this time. Edo, which is now Tokyo, is still Japan's capital city. You can still see signs of its Edo past in temples, gardens, and old neighborhoods. The Edo period was a really important time in Japanese history. It was a time of peace, stability, and amazing culture. While sakoku kept Japan separate from the rest of the world, it also helped Japan's unique traditions to grow. The Edo period prepared Japan for the amazing changes that happened in the late 1800s and early 1900s. To understand Japan today, you need to know about the Edo period. Japan in the mid-19th century was a very different place from the modern, technologically advanced nation we know today. For over 250 years it had been ruled by the Tokugawa shogunate, a feudal military government headed by a shogun. The country was largely isolated from the rest of the world. Foreign trade was strictly controlled and contact with Western nations was limited. The Tokugawa era was marked by peace and stability, but it was also a time of strict social hierarchy. The samurai, a warrior class, held a privileged position in society. Farmers, artisans, and merchants occupied lower rungs on the social ladder. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly unchanging world, the seeds of change were being sown. The Tokugawa shogunate's rigid social structure and isolationist policies were coming under increasing strain. Economic problems, social unrest, and growing dissatisfaction with the shogunate's rule created a climate ripe for change. By the mid-19th century, Japan was like a slumbering giant, unaware of the momentous changes taking place in the world beyond its shores. The arrival of a foreign power would soon awaken this giant and set in motion a chain of events that would transform Japan forever. In 1853, an American naval squadron commanded by Commodore Matthew Perry sailed into Edo Bay, now Tokyo Bay, demanding that Japan open its ports to trade with the United States. The arrival of Perry's black ships with their powerful guns and advanced technology sent shockwaves through Japanese society. The shogunate, caught off guard by this display of Western military might, was forced to sign a treaty with the United States in 1854, opening 2 Japanese ports to American ships. Similar treaties were soon signed with other Western powers. The forced opening of Japan had profound consequences for the country. It exposed the technological and military gap that had developed between Japan and the West during centuries of isolation. The shogunate's inability to resist foreign demands also undermined its authority, leading to growing calls for reform and modernization. The arrival of the West sparked a period of intense turmoil and upheaval in Japan. Many Japanese felt that the shogunate was no longer capable of defending the country's interests and preserving its independence. They called for a return to imperial rule and the restoration of the emperor to his rightful place as head of state. In 1868, a group of young samurai from Satsuma and Choshu, 2 powerful domains in southern Japan, led a coup d'état that toppled the Tokugawa shogunate. This event, known as the Meiji Restoration, marked the beginning of a new era in Japanese history. The young Emperor Meiji, who ascended the throne at the age of 15, became the symbol of a new modern Japan. The Meiji Restoration ushered in a period of radical transformation that would touch every aspect of Japanese life. Section 4. Fukoku Kyohei, the guiding principle of a new Japan. The Meiji government was determined to strengthen Japan and prevent it from becoming a colony of Western powers. They adopted the slogan Fukoku Kyohei, meaning rich country, strong army. This slogan captured the essence of the Meiji era's goals to build a modern, industrialized nation capable of competing with the West on equal terms. To achieve these goals, the Meiji government embarked on an ambitious program of modernization and reform. They sent Japanese students and officials abroad to study Western science, technology, and institutions. They also hired foreign experts to advise them on modernizing Japan's economy, military, and education system. Section 5. Industrial Revolution, from traditional craftsmanship to modern factories. One of the most dramatic changes during the Meiji era was the rapid industrialization of Japan. The government invested heavily in building railroads, steamships, and telegraph lines, laying the foundation for a modern industrial economy. They also encouraged the growth of private enterprise, providing subsidies and other forms of support to entrepreneurs who were willing to establish modern factories and businesses. Japan's traditional industries, such as silk production and tea processing, were modernized and expanded. At the same time, new industries such as shipbuilding, steelmaking, and mining were developed rapidly. By the early 20th century, Japan had become an industrial powerhouse capable of producing a wide range of manufactured goods.